discussion this evening is, I don't want to say continuation, because we kind of like lump it together. We're going to discuss marriage. First class was, birth, bris, names. And then we jump to the next part of the life cycle events, which is the bar and bat mitzvah. So people usually say, well, the next thing after that is you get married, A few years after bar mitzvah. 4 years, is that enough? 10 years. Nowadays, maybe 20, 25, 30, unfortunately. It's, But what I want to show this evening is that I don't want to just see it as a gradual movement. I really want to show you this evening, by looking at some of the Torah sources, and we can open it up since there's a small group this evening, that Jewish life divides into two parts: PM, AM, pre-marriage, after marriage. Because we live in a world where, I go to school, then I go to high school, then I go to college, then I get a job, then I date, then I get married. It's just that part of the process. This is not a Jewish concept. In Judaism, everything we do till we get married is there to prepare us for marriage, and everything we do after marriage is there to maintain the marriage and hopefully improve it at the same time. So I don't want to look at marriage as just some, we're going to get married, Hey, I've been dating for 4 years, dating for 5, 6 years, so what are we going to do? All right, let's get married, It's like it's a thread on the heap. And this is not a Jewish concept. Actually, dating, the way most people date today, unfortunately, is completely different to the Jewish idea of what dating is actually meant to be. Dating has actually become marriage. When you date someone for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, which people are doing nowadays, and we all know people, right, who've dated for that amount of time. We have some, maybe 2, 3 years. That is actually marriage. I mean, what's the difference? You didn't have a big party. There wasn't a chuppah. Okay, there wasn't a big ice swan. And what was what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? So dating is meant to be a way to establish who is the person I should be spending the rest of my life with. Okay. Not, let's have a lot of fun, let's enjoy ourselves, let's fall in love, and let's get married. Actually, falling in love before you get married is actually a very dangerous game to play. Because it could be that you don't end up getting married, and it could be once you get married, it's rather anticlimactic, I don't want to burst the bubble over here, You have a bit, though. I have a little bit. I should a little bit, yeah. I've been known to do that a little bit. It's a wonderful thing. I recommend marriage, by the way, make no mistake. But the idea that it is just a continuation from dating is not true. It goes right back to the beginning of the Torah, and according to some opinions, it's actually the first mitzvah is to get married and have kids. And so central it is to life in general. And this is actually a command for Jews and non-Jews. I mean, from different parts and different ways, but it goes back to creation of the world. Right? The mitzvah come from Mount Sinai, which occurs, 2,500 years into creation. And suddenly here we are, at the beginning of the Torah, before everything, and we're being told to, get married and have kids. So there's something very, very central about this thing itself, So what is that exactly? What does the Torah have to say about it? And what is marriage meant to represent? And I got to bear the question. Why the heck should we get married? It's the craziest thing. You're married, right? Is that crazy? It's just like complete insanity. So the whole concept, I don't know, why would I want to get married? Why would I want to just go through life, having fun, listen to the music I want to listen to, eating what I want to eat, when I want to eat it, and all of a sudden, this complete stranger comes into your life, this guy or this girl, right, with all their craziness and all their insanity, and you're all very comfortable, and you're dating, having a good time, and suddenly you enter this world where you're stuck, and you've got to listen, and you've got to be nice, and you've got to, Oh my God. And you've got to deal with all their insanity and deal with his parents or her parents, and everyone's getting involved, and they expect stuff, and you have to get every day, all the time, and you can't just come home and go out. You've got to see them all the time, and you can't just get away from them, and you can't take a week off, can't take a day off. You're constantly there and leaving you alone on the phone and making chit-chat. You're so bored, and they're always so nasty, and when you're dating, they were so nice and clean and good, and now they're scratching themselves with their keys, and they're leaving their underwear on the floor, and they're drooling, and just horrible. And then it gets worse. When you just think, like, that's like bad enough. And all of a sudden, these like kids turn up. It's like screaming, angry child. It's like, what do we do? It's like you're responsible for this like crazy couple who have all their foibles, all their insanity, and thrown into one apartment, and then you got to bring a kid involved. It's like screaming, and you can't sleep, and you're hungry, and you're tired, and you're constipated, and you got to deal with this kid as well. You got to deal with him, and you got to deal with the baby as well, and another. Whose idea was this? Are you crazy? And honestly, if you were like, let's be honest about it. You got to be crazy to get married. This makes no sense. Why would you want to? I love my mother. I don't marry her. Well, that would be weird. I love her. Okay, that's just weird. I could live with my mother the rest of my life. It's true. People do. A lot of Jewish guys still with their mothers. If not physically, then definitely proverbially. You know what I'm saying? They're always there. Well, good for taxes. Why would you do it?
To find someone who compliments you, to complete you or something.
So let me get this straight. You're a married woman?
Yes.
And your answer was to complete you, something like that?
Yeah, it's like two souls coming together as one.
Do you feel as though your souls come together with one?
I don't know, but he compliments me well, so.
As in when compliments you, as in you look nice today, or?
No,
compliments you.
Not compliment. Yes.
He's meant to compliment and to compliment as well.
I mean both, but yes.
That he's meant to do. So we're actually going to see that attitude which I've just spelled out to you, which we all feel sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Everyone does. Even if you're under the chuppah and everything's fantastic, it's going to happen, especially the first year of marriage, which is a complete nightmare. That you're going to be like, what the heck was I thinking? And you've got to come back to the information I'm going to share with you today, which is it's the reason you were born and put into this world. And that's the truth. The reason God created us was to find a partner and to create a life together. That's what it's all about. Everything else is just background music to help us get to that point. All the insanity and craziness which exists and is there, when it comes down to what I'm really trying to do, is to why? Why would that be? Why would that be the crucible that God created, which pretty much everyone wants to get married? I mean, no one knows why they want to get married. And after a while, they realize that they actually don't want to be married. And that's why half of the people who are married get divorced. 50%. 1 in 2. Chances are you get married, 1 in 2 are going to end up divorced. It's the way it is. It's like, so you want to say, I mean, these people under the chuppah, they're like, I give this 2 years. Only a crazy person would do that. You got to be completely off your rocker to even think that I'm just in this for a couple of years. I mean, I wouldn't suggest you try this, but at least theoretically think about it. But you go up to some guy, you're dating him, and you're like, maybe we should get married. And just so you know, when we're getting married, it's not a 1-year commitment. It's not 2 years. It's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. It's not 20 years. We're going to be together for 50 years. You're like, where are you running? Why are you leaving? That's what it is. That's what it is, right? I mean, you don't talk about it because the thought of it is absolutely harrowing to any Jewish male. A Jewish female, they have maybe more of a connection to it, and they see the idea of it, which is actually, by the way, one of the reasons, there's a couple of reasons, why the mitzvah to get married and have kids is actually for the man. Now, it's impossible for a man without the woman. But the mitzvah is actually for the man. Why we direct the gun towards the man? I mean, if a woman gets married, has kids, it's a wonderful mitzvah, but she's not obligated. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons. One is because childbirth is dangerous, and Hashem wouldn't obligate us in something that could be life-threatening to us. But the other central idea is that women naturally are meant to, unfortunately our generation maybe is changing, but are meant to have that knowledge that this is what I've got to do. I was made a certain way, and I got to create a family. It's innate. And I see it with my kids. My daughter's always getting dressed up. Right? They're always like brides. You see, they get the dress, and they go with them.
Or moms.
Or moms, always doing that. I'll tell you something, as a boy, we men, we don't grow up thinking, one day, I'm going to be wearing a nice tuxedo under the chuppah. So I'm going to, are you crazy? It's like, that's the last thing I think about. You think about, killing all your friends with a fake gun. That's what you think about. The women like they're dressing up, they put the gown, and the other little daughters are like the bridesmaids, and you're the groom. It's an innate thing. It's may not be PC to say nowadays for some reason, right? But it's definitely AC. It's definitely absolutely correct. And that is innately there. So that would be one of the reasons that it's actually given to the man. So the Torah itself, very early on, gives advice as to what should happen when looking for a partner. What are we looking for? Right? Assuming that let's change the dating thing. Let's just kind of open our heads. Dating is no longer having fun. Dating is, I'm trying to figure out as quickly, as easily, as unemotionally as possible. We're emotional beings, that's difficult. Whether this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Let's just change dating into that. Okay? Which makes visits to the movie theater and theaters and important, but not what it's about, really. You're trying to figure out signs, things to look out. What is this person about? What are their character traits? What are they doing? What are they about? What are they interested in? Where do they see themselves? By the way, these questions can be answered pretty quickly, by the way. This whole 5-year dating insanity is really not necessary. 6 months is really enough, actually. But I know people think I'm completely crazy when I say I don't say that anymore. So I say, fine, take time, take a year, 4 seasons. 6 months, in your mid to late 20s, you don't figure out if someone's right for you after 6 months. You're living in Tralalula land. But we'll leave that aside. So the Torah itself gives some very interesting advice. Okay, I know you're thinking, I don't need to hear this, the men need to hear this. That's okay, that's why I'm recording it, and we'll play it to the men as well. Okay? Jokes aside, actually, when I was in yeshiva, so I dated up, grew up dating, as in normal dating, whatever that is, or maybe abnormal dating. And then I got involved, and I changed it. And I went to yeshiva, and the head of my yeshiva actually wouldn't let any of the guys in the yeshiva date unless they'd been through a course. In other words, we have courses to drive a car, and we have courses to become a lawyer. But the thing you're going to spend the most of your life doing, being a husband or a wife, I just jump straight in there. Yeah, just jump straight in, man, no problem. Just jump straight. It's like the old joke, a guy goes to some guy and says, listen, I'd like to marry your daughter. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Take my daughter. And can I borrow $10,000? What are you going to do with it? No, I just want $10,000. $10,000, we'll question. My daughter, off you go. You invested $250,000 from babyhood to adulthood pre-college. It's a bigger investment as well as being a daughter, you know what I'm saying, to the son. So there's this disconnect we're dealing with in our generation. So the Torah says, therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife. Right? And the word for cling, actually, in Hebrew is davek, which in modern Hebrew means glue. Glue. You meant to glue yourself to this other person, cling, hold on to them, and they should become basar achat, one flesh. Okay, so let's go through that. A few ideas over here. There's a lot on this verse, obviously. You have to leave your mother and father, which for Jewish males takes, 40 years. But let's assume we're dealing with normal, healthy individuals, and they have to disconnect, right? Which can be difficult. Interesting, I always find interesting, this is more for the, at this point they're both male and female actually, but the idea is that maybe there's a disconnect over here, that we have to pull ourselves away from the past and create a new future, which is scary. Cleave to his wife and become one flesh. Well, one flesh, what does that mean, one flesh? So the commentators point a few things out of this. Some say, well, you actually create children and they become one flesh because genetically they're half the mother, half the father. Some say you actually become like family. You become, you choose your family. You don't choose your brothers and sisters. Or you probably wouldn't choose the brothers and sisters you have, most people, unfortunately, when they're younger especially. But you become one flesh, as in you become like family. one opinion says like this. Sefer Misakadolot, smug. He says, I'll tell you what it is. Imagine I'm drinking a cup of water, and I drop the cup, and then you see me do this. Stupid hand. What are you doing? Or you see me walking down the street, and I trip up with my right foot. Then you see me kick my right foot with my left foot. Stupid foot, why do you do that? Or you see me cutting an onion, and then I cut my hand. And then you see my left hand take the knife and stab the right hand. What would you say? You'd say the rabbi is, drinking some good stuff. Right? He's smoking the wrong cigarettes. He's like completely crazy. Why? Because it's me. Right? It's me. We're very quick to say, oh, it was an accident. We're very good at excusing ourselves. So that's really what we try to do with another person. It's possible to say we become one being. It's a famous story of a rabbi in Israel who was supposedly excellent at Shalom Bayit, in a peace in the home, Rav Aryeh Levin. There's a book written about him called A Tzaddik in Our Time, a righteous person in our time. And the story is told, it's a very famous story. It's a beautiful story, though. And girls like this one especially. And they always say, when they hear the story. So, So his wife had a problem with her foot. So they went to the doctor together. And the doctor said, okay, what's the problem? And he said, my wife's foot hurts us. Right? It's not her foot, my foot. Her foot hurts us. It's like we're in it together. Right? He was an elderly man at this point, Most younger men just send the wife up to the doctor by themselves and, don't even ask how it was, You had a problem with your foot? Oh, it's gangrene. Okay, fine, how's it going? What's for dinner? So this was the idea. You become one flesh, you become one being. I can't hurt because I'm trying to find someone who... Do we mention love yet, by the way? Love didn't come up yet. Nothing about love. Let's turn over. Maybe there'll be something about love. Now. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Excuse me. There's another pasuk I want to share with you. So what am I looking for? What's the whole point? So the Torah says a little bit earlier, I'll tell you what you're looking for. Who's this person you're going to become one with? A person does the following. Hashem said, it is not good for man to be alone. Right? I will make him a helper corresponding to him, which in English doesn't make sense. I'll read you the Hebrew. I'll make him an Ezer Kenegdo. Ezer means a helper. Like the name Ezra, it's a helper, right? Kenegdo means opposite, opposing, against. So 1 second. You're telling me that we'll have to find someone who's helping us against us? Doesn't make sense. Either you're helping me or you're against me. And the answer is no. You're looking for someone who can oppose you. And by opposing you, they make you great. Like we humans are, I think, alone. Maybe some monkeys do as well. We have an opposable thumb. Okay? One of the signs of development of a child, we always get very excited when the kid starts walking, everyone starts screaming and filming. But actually going from the grabbing movement to the pincing movement is a sign of maturity and development. It's a very, very big sign, they say, when you start to pinch rather than just grab. Okay, that's a good sign. So we have this opposable thumb. By opposing, I'm able to pick things up and work at a different level. And this idea of opposing is helping. So we think, what are we looking for in a marriage partner? Someone's always going to love me. Always going to take care of me. Will always be. And the answer is, that may be true. But you know what it's really about? Look at someone who's going to oppose you. Who's going to be against you. Okay? Now, against could be in a bad way, the Talmud says. You want someone who's going to be against you in a good way. By opposing you to make you great. Which takes us back to the whole point of marriage. And the whole reason God created this thing called marriage was to help us to become better people, to work on our character traits. And you can't do that with your parents. And you can't do it with your brothers and sisters. And you can't do it with your friends. You've got to be in this iron crucible of complete insanity. With running around and shopping and cleaning and making a living and a job. That is the only context. And you get to choose the person. That's the good news. All right? It's not like you have to marry your brother, which for many women is fantastic news, by the way. But that would actually be pretty convenient. You know you're going to marry. There's no problems of dating. You know all his disgusting habits, and that's the end of it, And the answer is no. A complete stranger enters your life, and you're entitled to choose that person. And luckily, if your parents, there's no arranged marriage in Judaism, but that's completely forbidden. There's arranged dating, but there's no arranged marriage. If you say, I want to marry that person, you don't marry that person. If you say, I want to marry that person, and your parents say no, you're allowed to marry that person. Or there's a mitzvah to honor your mother and father, and listen to what they say. In this case, no. Entitled to marry whoever you want. Usually your parents know best, by the way. So if your parents are against someone, they probably know you better than anybody else, so that's something else. But we'll leave that aside, right? What am I doing is I'm choosing a person to create a family. Because that's what we're in. You see, we are in the Jewish family business. Let's make that up. I like that. And what's that? The Jewish family. That's our business. It goes all the way back to Abraham and Sarah. And you can't help but see, that when you look at all the stories in the Torah, they always involved husbands, wives, and kids. We have like 2-3 pages of discussion about creation of the world, the universe, and everything, and they're very quickly meeting people. That's like 2-3 pages. Trillions and trillions of stars, and all of a sudden, push that aside. Right? That's not important. We're not the history of events, history of people, and mostly how they operate in their families. And what they want to do is they want to create Jewish families. So Abraham is with his wife Sarah. And we focus around their home, because that's the center of Jewish life. And then we have Isaac, and he wants to get married. And there's a whole discussion of how Isaac found his wife. Actually, the longest prayer in the Torah that exists is actually the prayer of Eliezer, that's Abraham's servant, praying to God to find a good wife for his son Isaac. There's a reason why that's the longest prayer. That means it's really important. Let's go get married. Oh, you been dating? Oh, let's go get married now. How long has it been? We're trying to create something. You have to bring forward children, Most men don't think about that when they date. She's cute, she's pretty, Listen, I'm not saying you have to marry someone ugly. Right? But it's like the coating on a car, the color of a car. You don't choose a car because of its color, unless you're female, right? But you don't choose a car that's pink with red spots, right? But choosing a car because of its color is the craziest thing, right? Well, why would you do that? It's got to function. Okay, it's got to have a nice color. Otherwise, I don't want to be with it. It's got to actually do its job. It's got to run well. It's got to last. Sorry to use the car analogy, but it works quite nicely here as well. Right? I'm trying to create something over here. I've got to think about how am I going to achieve what I want, and that's bringing forward a family. The next question is, why have kids? And that's really crazy. I mean, kids are nuts, and they're really expensive. I mean, I don't want to tell you what the statistics, the economists say from baby to pre-college, $250,000. I read that a few years ago. It's probably up. That's a lot of money. You could have a few Ferraris with that, you know what I'm saying? You got a lot of pocketbooks with that, and Yet we see from the Torah, they're obsessed with having kids. And there's fights in the Torah in order to, and they push, and they go to each other, and there's argument, and it's a big deal. Or like rabbits, they have lots of kids. Dogs have lots of puppies, Cats have litters. So we have kids. What do? Well, we dated, now we're married, we might as well just have kids. And the answer is no. The answer is no. Why do we want children? So you go from this crazy dating world to this marriage, and then you get at least 9 months. Great gift. Imagine you give birth straight away. Imagine that. 2 days after marriage. Not good. Not good. You have at least 9 months to go crazy with each other, figure out all the problems, all the mommy-daddy issues, go to a therapist, work it out, then you have a baby. Right? Actually, you should do that before you get married, but we'll leave that aside. So, there's a nice story I was told by one of my friends, happened to him actually. He said he was on a plane. This should answer the question. And he was on the way to Israel, whatever. He's a rabbi. He had maybe 4 kids at that point. He's got 9, whatever it was, And he was on the plane. And someone said to him, are these your kids? He's like, yeah. goes, yeah, this is my wife as well, but we don't have kids. Because you want to know why? Okay, if you want to tell me, you can tell me, because I'll tell you why. He says, when I got married to my wife, this guy told my friend, we realized this world is a very cruel, nasty world. There's wars, there's evil in the world, there's famine. People are just so nasty. We felt it was immoral to bring children to this world. I kind of hear it, actually. It's got a certain rationale to it. Who would bring kids into this horrible, cruel, nasty world? There's people robbing and stealing. Why would we do that? That's so expensive as well, Why would we do that? So my friend said to him a beautiful thing. He said, you're absolutely right. The world is tough, and the world is difficult, and there's challenges, but my kids are going to make the world into a better place. You see, we think that what we're doing is making humanity. Again, it's not even just a Jewish thing. Non-Jews have this as well. We want to create a better world. How do we do that? By improving ourselves in the context of marriage, and by, through healthy relationships, creating healthy, stable children who are going to improve the world. So there's this big backlash, don't have kids, I'm saying, too many kids. This is complete nonsense. It really is. And I'm not usually so judgmental. But this idea of no, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. If you have a good quality, then you could do it. If, truth be told, you're just having, 15 kids with, 15 wives, so maybe it could be worth taking a cold shower, and reading up on various forms of prevention. I hear it and I respect it. However, for most people, that's not the case. For most people, the idea is that we're going to improve the world. That's what we're trying to do. And that's how we make the world into a better place. That's our contribution. So the whole history of Jewish life is Jewish family life. And that's why we're a tribal. What are the tribes? It's about the tribes. Right? We think somewhere like some kind of desert somewhere. No, the tribes are actually a collection of families that are together. And all of Israel was divided up into tribal life. Because the tribes are really the family essence that bring the Jewish people together. Didn't mention love yet. Terrible. What a terrible rabbi. I'm going to mention it now. It is mentioned. Unfortunately, the way we define love is completely different to the... So what's meant to happen? So we see that Isaac got married. And he was introduced by an impartial individual that was checked by his father, but he sent Eliezer, because parents are very, very, as we say in Hebrew, nogeh b'davar. Parents are very, very involved, okay? So sometimes take an outside person, but the parents check. Abraham said, take from these families only, not from those families, and I want from this particular family, I want good people. Eliezer, what does Eliezer look for? Good traits. So he finds a wife. And it says that Isaac met her. They got married. They moved in together. i.e. they became intimate. And then they fell in love. See? They met. They got married. They moved in. They fell in love. Nowadays, we do it the exact opposite way. We fall in love. Then we get physically intimate. Then we move in. Then we get married. Everyone is following the exact opposite direction of the way the Torah is telling us to do it. Because we all want to jump to the end point. You can't jump. There's various steps. Now, I don't tell people this too often because they get upset, especially with the middle order over here. Like, what are you saying, Rabbi? So we'll just leave that for a second. But the idea of the love part of it has to come at the end. It's only when you've been through the process of the marriage, only when you've been through that world, she doesn't have to, only when you've been through that world of character improvement and caring and giving, is love actually meant to enter into the... And you see, many people will say that they thought they were in love under their chuppahs, or they thought they were getting married for love. And if they're in a good marriage, I'm saying, and you turn up 10 years later, or 20 years later, if they have the merit of staying married that long, and they will actually say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I thought I was in love then, now it started. We didn't know each other. So people think they need to date for a long time, because the more I'll know this individual, the more, and the answer is, that's not necessarily true. It could actually work against you. Statistically, this is from Rutgers University, people who live together before they get married have a high incidence of divorce. It doesn't make sense, right? It's always like counterintuitive. If we live together beforehand, we get to try it out. If it works out well, fine. If not, we'll just break up, you know. But in fact, we stay together, we get married, and the answer is, I hear, but maybe it's a slightly dangerous game to play. Because you've moved from this world of me, which is dating. He takes care of me, he's so nice to me, and he loves me, see? And then we move into a world which is us. You turn the I into us, and the me into we. That's a big jump. That's a very big jump. Especially if you've been operating in the world of me, which we all do. I mean, who doesn't love themselves?
But if you live together, you're us. Before you get married.
I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is for some people. Maybe it is.
But it's like practice.
Yeah, you would have thought practice makes perfect, but for some reason it doesn't seem to always work like that. In other words, physically it's right. You're sharing it to, and you share this, and you're cooking, but it's a state of mind as well. And for many people, that's why women still want to get married when they live together. They still want to go through that process. Why do they want to? Stay together. What's the big deal? Don't have to. We're in America. It's 2012. Do whatever you want. I bring another 5 partners in. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? And the answer is, it's a state of mind. I mean, isn't it to some degree? So interestingly, the wedding ceremony itself reflects everything I'm telling you. Right? We get married under a chuppah. So the first thing you do when you get married is a public declaration. You have a lot of people there, and they are watching, and they're saying that this couple are now getting married. And the word for marriage in Hebrew, you know, or a chuppah ceremony, is called kiddushin. That's the word kiddushin, because the word kadosh, holy. What does holy mean? Elevated, separate, distinct, apart. Now, technically, it's important so that everyone knows that this guy is only for this girl, and not for the 15 girls over there. Right? And this girl's only for this guy, right? Not the guys over there. So there's a technical thing that everyone has to know they are now separate for each other, which is why she walks around him, right, to break down the old walls and build new walls around him. That's where that custom comes from. It's like when Joshua, right, and the Jewish people walked around the walls of Jericho the first time they entered into the land of Israel to bring down the walls. Same idea is connected to this as well. And you stand under this chuppah and you publicly make a declaration that we're together. And then what happens? Well, what's the chuppah, first of all? So the chuppah is 4 poles and a roof and a cloth. But it's got a roof on it, and it's got 4 poles. What's that for? Just get married in a room. And the answer is it represents the Jewish home. Now, I don't know about you, but I've not seen many Jewish homes that are open on all 4 sides. But there was one Jewish home that we are told was open on all 4 sides. Whose Jewish home was that? Abraham and Sarah, right. We know that Abraham and Sarah had their home open. Why did they have the home open on all 4 sides? Get nice, good, cross breeze. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
That's all they had?
He was very, very wealthy.
After
They were extremely wealthy. Yeah, at this point, he was very, very wealthy, and he could have built a house that was solid. And they used to have houses in those days. What is it, the Bronze Age or something? I don't know where they were. Right? They had a lot of, they could have built houses. They had houses. Could have stones on stones. So why do they have a tent? And why was it open on 4 sides? Welcoming people into the home. Teaching people. The Jewish home is where we learn. Not the synagogue. Didn't open yeshiva to do this. He opened his home so people come in and learn about Jewish life in the home. Because the home is the center of Jewish life. That's why we got married. So we use this home to do chesed, do goodness, teach people about God, teach people about being nice and work on their character traits. So he used his homes as open on four sides. People could come in and they could enter, and he planted it as a tent. Why a tent? Because if you just stay in one place the whole life, then people aren't going to. So he moved it around. He had to be portable. Go to that community and that community, which wasn't easy. That's one of the reasons the Jewish people have been traveling for so many years. All right, we've got to bring it to different places. That's actually one of the reasons behind Galut, exile, but we'll leave that aside. We're talking more on the personal family level. That's what he did. Okay, you're not expected to uproot your house every, couple of years. Okay, especially not in this market. However, the idea of your home being open and educating and welcoming and using your home for chesed and goodness, that's the point. That's what it's there for. And having children. I mean, you bring your kids up in your home. People think, oh, send them to yeshiva, learn about Judaism over there. It's a big mistake. You bring your kids up in the home. They spend more time in the home than anywhere else. And the time they spend in the home is valuable time. And that's the story of Abraham and Sarah. And that's what we pass on to his kids, Isaac and Rebekah. We passed on to their kids, Jacob and Rachel and Leah. And it got passed on to the tribes. And we are just results of the family life of these great individuals that came before us. And it stems from good choices when it comes to finding a marriage partner and being in marriage. Which is why I started this whole class by saying that all of life is about preparing yourself for marriage and then maintaining it. It's attaining it, then maintaining it. That's what we're trying to do. That's all I want to share with you this evening. Thoughts, questions, insults. I'll take it all. I've been married. I've got kids. I can take it all.
A few weeks ago, she was talking to me at a bar, and she's like, "Oh, they asked me about my boyfriend, this and that, how long we've been together, this and that. How old are you? What do you do?" "Well, you're not going to marry him," she said. "You're so young, and, you're not going to marry him." I was so insulted. I was like, of course I'm going to marry him. Why do you think I'm dating him? I've always had that mindset. Like, I'm not just going to date around, like you're saying, to have fun. "Oh, you're always in serious relationships." That's what people always said to me. Well, why? What? Be in what else kind of relationship?
There are other types of relationships, Courtney, I'll be honest with you. So you're doing.
Well, of course there are, but I guess that's the way I was brought up.
You were brought up the right way.
Right to the point.
You're brought up the right way.
I don't know. So I didn't tell her I was insulted, but I was pretty insulted. That's
okay. She's speaking more about herself than about you.
Right, exactly. And later she said, "Leo, I haven't divorced him." Okay.
I hear.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's not so funny actually. I went to a seminar, have rabbinical seminars, and they want to figure out the divorce thing. So they had like a dais with all like professionals, like psychiatrists and this and the other, up on top of rabbis, So they asked, what's the reason for high divorce rates, throw out to the panel, see what they'd say. I never give different answers, not enough love, not enough giving. One of the guys, actually a psychiatrist up there, held up a paper cup and said, "This is the reason for high divorce rates." What a paper cup. But he said, "We've created a disposable culture." Okay, finish the paper cup, what do? Punch it up, throw it out. Right, next time, let's get a new one. Like pens. This pen, I've been holding on to it for like a couple of days. You know what? In the next 20 minutes, I'll lose it, throw it away, I'll get a new one. I grew up, had like a pen. I had like a pen. Held on to it was like a real pen. I had like a relationship with it. I don't mean like a relationship, but it was like you feel connected to it. Nowadays, let's break through and get a new one, right? Your iPod, right? Your iPad. Right? You had it like 3 years. You don't go to get it fixed. Right? It's a pretty crazy thing to do, right? Most people, to fix it will cost you, right, let's say it's a thread, we get a new one. You know what I'm saying? Your brakes on your car don't work anymore. They don't fix your brakes. They take them out, throw them away, get a new one. So the paper cups break, throw them away, get a new one. The pens break, throw them away, brakes break. Right? iPod. Your marriage breaks, throw it away, get a new one. We've created this disposable culture, which is why I think, or I like to say, that in Jewish life we have relationships with things. We have the candlesticks that get passed down. We have tefillin. Right? Jewish men, when they come 13, they have the idea that I can have something in my life that is solid and stable and with me all the time, that's precious to me. It's being passed down generations, well, not tefillin, right? But you have certain objects. Right? These things, they add a certain amount of stability, an idea of permanence into our lives that hopefully projects into the rest of our lives. So all these things that we have, they're nice, they're pretty, they look good, but they actually send a message to us that some things are worth holding on to and saving. All right. Fabulous. Just improved your marriage like 1,000%, right? It's a whole different reality now. You're like, wow, I never knew. I was just trying to have a good time, and now I'm like, see, there's something to this. All right. We'll stop over there. Have a wonderful, successful week, and we'll pick this up, God willing, next week.